So, second attempt at this video, I recorded the whole thing, or I thought I did, but the mic was muted. So, giving it a second chance. We're going to write pop. The very first thing we need to do is define the method pop, takes no arguments, and then let's start with the edge case. If there are no nodes in the list, return undefined. Okay, so let's define pop and check if there are no nodes. We have a couple ways of doing this. Let me clear down here. We could check if the length is 0, or I'm going to check if there is no head. So if no this dot head, if not this dot head or this dot tail, just return undefined. We can do it on one line. Nice and easy. So the next piece is loop through the list until you reach the tail, except really we're trying to find the tail and the second to last thing that comes right before the tail. So when we loop, we're going to have two variables. One that's going to be called, I don't know, current. It doesn't really matter. Just the thing that is going to hit the end. And then two, which we'll call previous, or I like to call it new tail because it's what is going to become the tail, right? If our list looks like this, hello, goodbye, exclamation point, we're going to start at the beginning. They're both going to point here, current and new tail, NT, right? And we're going to loop through, and I'm going to move current up here and check. Is this the end of the list? Nope, it's not. So we move new tail up. Then I'm going to move current up again and check, all right, is this the end of the list? And it is. So I don't move new tail. And this tells me that this is my new tail. So I'm going to pop this off by severing this arrow. And then I'm going to make this the tail. So that's kind of our workflow here. Let's reset them back to the starting gate. I think I deleted a bracket over here. Okay, so to do that loop, let me comment that out. It's not valid JavaScript, is it? What I'm going to do is start by making those two variables. So var current, and I'm going to start that at the top, this dot head. And then I'm going to make my other variable called new tail, and I'll set it to be current. They're the same thing at the beginning. They both start at the very beginning. Now we loop over. So from the last video, I showed you one way of doing this. I'm going to do while current dot next. That means while there is something, so if current is goodbye, is there a next? Yes. But when current is exclamation point, there is no next, and that's when we're going to stop. And there's a couple ways of writing this code. So if you didn't do current dot next and you made it work, if it works, it's totally valid. Okay, and all that we're going to do is set new tail to equal current, and then move current forward 1. So new tail is always lagging behind. New tail is set to whatever current was, and then we move current 1 forward. And we keep going until there is nowhere for current to move forward to. So at the end of this, if I just did a console.log current.val, and then console.log new tail.val, you'll see if I do list.pop, we end up with current is the exclamation point node, and goodbye, new tail is the previous one, goodbye. It's the one right before it. Okay, so that gets us what we want. At the end of this list, current and new tail are the correct values. So now all we need to do is move the tail. This dot tail is now pointing to new tail. So at the end of our little simulation, current is referencing this right here, and new tail references goodbye. So all we do is say, all right, this thing right here is the tail. That's what this does. Then if we reference this, we need to set the new tail's next node to be null. So we'll just do this dot tail dot next equals null. So there's nothing that comes after it. That severs the connection with exclamation point. So it's not enough just to say this is our new tail, because if it keeps pointing at something, then that doesn't mean it's the end of the list. So we need to sever the arrow, which is what we've done now. So we have current. So we know at the very end of this, we want to return current, okay? And the other thing we need to do is decrement length, this dot length minus minus. And this will get us 99.99% of the way there. This meets all the requirements. And if we test this out, get rid of this for now. Let's push on this dot, okay, that should work. Let's give it a test. I'm going to refresh my code, execute it, list.pop. Right now it has 3 things in there. It returns to me exclamation point. And if we look at the list, it's now 2 items long, and the tail is goodbye. All right, let's pop one more time. It returns to me goodbye. That's correct. And if we look at list, it is now 1 item long. Okay, so it seems like it's working. Let's try pushing something on push 99, just a bunch of 9s on. We look at list, it's 2 items long. The head is hello, the tail is 9999. If we do list.pop, it gives me that number back. Okay, so that's all good. But if we do list.pop one more time, it does pop off the value of hello and give me what I expect. But if we look at list, it still has a head and a tail, but the length has gone down. So there's a special case when there's one item left in the list. And I didn't specify this in the instruction, so I would expect nobody to catch this unless you actually went through and tested this. If there's one item, there's a problem because we're never setting the head and the tail to be null. It should be empty. If there's only one item left and we remove it, well, we've done that, but because the way our code works, new tail and current are set to be the exact same thing. So I'm going to show a refactored version of all of this at the end of the section, but one really simple workaround it's kind of clunky, but if we just check if the length of the list is now 0, so down here, if we subtract 1 from the length and we just check, all right, is the list empty now? So if this dot length equals 0, or we could also check if the head is equal to the tail. Let me do 3 equals. If that's the case, we're now just going to say this dot head equals null, this dot tail equals null. That means that there was one item, we popped it off, and we subtracted 1 from the length. So now there is 0 items in there, so we just reset head and tail to be null. Let's verify that it works. So we have our list. If we do list.pop, first thing gone, second thing gone. Right now it is 1 item long. So if we pop this time, it gives us the correct value. And if we look at list, it now has a length of 0. The head is null, the tail is null. And if we try and pop again, we should get undefined. And the list should still be 0 items. Oftentimes I've seen this where, it keeps going into negative numbers. That's not correct. We want length to be 0. All right, so that's my solution to pop. If you came up with something better, more elegant, please share it. I'm going to show you a nice refactor later on that will slim this down significantly to 1 line by calling another function, another method we're going to define. So it can't be 1 line on its own right now. But once we define this auxiliary function, it will be shorter. Anyway, that's pop.